Samuel.
It's 7:33, Tuesday, July 16th. I'll call the meeting of the planning and zoning meeting, commission to order. Present is, Andy Marcos, Doug Roberts, Rebecca Sinowski, William Bennell. I'll seat Michael Johansson for, Walter Parcells. Applications for receipt,
We do not have any, so I'm just trying to fix that.
no public hearings. New business, 350 Ruby Road, MDL 42-048-01. Minor site modifications pertaining to treatment system upgrades. Applicant J. Hoffman, owner FedEx Ground Package System, Inc.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm Jason Hoffman. I work for Fuss and O'Neill. We're based out of Manchester, Connecticut. First, I'll say thank you for being a part of the commission. I've been a chairman for the WPCA in Lebanon for many years. To understand what volunteer work is all about. We did 320 grinder pumps around Amston Lake. All low pressure mains to pressure discharge gravity manholes. With bioxide odor control. And everything that went along with that, permitting the town residents, the coordinating with money. But we're not talking about that tonight, we're talking about FedEx. FedEx, I'll start at the beginning. FedEx currently has a wastewater treatment plant. And it's a biological treatment process that's 20+ years old. Basic principle, trickling filter. Picks the wastewater up, throws it on top of the media. Biological growth on top of the media. Then it goes gravity to a set of sand filters. And then final pump station out to the parking lot. And what we don't see on this map is the existing disposal system runs all the way down this parking lot. With monitoring wells, we're not touching any of the existing disposal part of the system. What we propose to do is take the two biological process units in series. There's two of them. When you look at the aerial, they're the round tanks right near the square building as you drive up the driveway to your left before you get to the guard shack. So in this picture out here would be these two tanks right here. So what we're proposing is taking these two tanks out and putting two tractor trailer style prefabricated steel tanks that have new treatment within those trailers. Those trailers are gonna sit in this corner on an 8-inch slab. They're gonna have piping that comes out. We're gonna have a manhole that we put in the ground right here that comes to the existing tank that's here already. It's an equalization tank to control flow. The yellow depicts our limited disturbance, and really the only reason it's that wide is because I have wattles in the design for erosion. So if anything was to come off the hill, we are gonna be tackling this small portion of the hill because we're gonna be grabbing electric and water from this driveway, bringing it down and bringing it right into the front of our proposed new building. Trailers. The trailers contain a process called MBBR, moving biological bed reactor. Basically, they've taken the theory of trickling filters and contained them in a package and then figured out that if you move the media, it works much better. Currently, we have the 90% design at Eastern Highlands Health District with Lynette and Christopher Butler. They're both taking a look at this. 90% is at Connecticut Deep. Um. I can answer more technical questions on the process itself. Like I said, we're really not changing anything. We're gonna eliminate 8 parking spots in the corner. Back up in here where we're putting the trailers. But when we take out the 2 BioClears, we're gaining them back. So Bill Moreau, he's in charge of environment, engineering up there. I discussed with him over the last year or so that when we take these out, this slope already is gonna remain the same. We're gonna put curbing across. He grabs these 2 parking spots, plus these, plus those. And he loses, sorry, just these right here and these. So it's pretty much an even swap. It's 8 for 8. Other things we put on the map, just so you know, we got the imagery from Connecticut Echo Layer for these. These would depict soils that could be wetlands, water bodies, same thing. I believe on that side of the property many years ago, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, they put a retaining wall over here. We're 280 feet from the closest portion of that, basically in the middle of nowhere.
But have any disruption of the fire pumps that are there in the lower section?
No, because this is wastewater, so their drinking water, you have to go through the, you wouldn't be able to, yes, you can see it on this map. Their drinking water well house is somewhere in this vicinity over here. On the map. And we're only taking water to use as wash water for Hanson, basically. The process is all wastewater, so we're not like adding water to the process.
Were there changes at did Deep not change standards related to what, is this related to an increase in standards from Deep? They're basically now holding you to a higher standard. And so you're making these changes because they're telling you, you have to. Because I think that this is similar to what we saw across the street. I think the TA, they had all those wells, they're doing stuff with wells and a new pump house and a whole bunch of stuff.
You're clarifying water better.
I think that it's related to the same standard. I don't know anything about what they've done, but I think you're both in the same boat.
So I know I worked close with the state across the street at Love's. So Love's took many years of permitting to get up off the ground. My specific hire was to build the amphitrome, the disposal system over there on the hill, and the drinking water system. So I spent the whole entire time over there at Love's during that construction project, but specifically for wastewater and drinking water. And the big disposal system you put on the hill, which was incredible.
That, in your opening statement of the project summary, the first paragraph says the current system does not discharge compliant wastewater. Is that because the standards changed? So it used to, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's been issues along the way with upsets. What we're proposing takes a lot of that away. This type of treatment can absorb shock loads,
Okay.
can absorb big shock loads, whereas older treatment styles really couldn't. So we had to be super careful. If you took 5 gallons of floor stripper.
Alright.
You know what I mean? Whereas a plant like this,
What could handle?
I'm not saying they should be dumping any floor
No.
stripper. In fact, they're not supposed to at all. But
Yeah,
my point is, this is a more robust system. I ran and operated a system like this in Franklin, Connecticut for an egg farm. Where they had 15,000 times milligrams per liter more than what domestic wastewater has.
okay,
They had ammonia limits of like 10,000.
sure.
They had TSS limits in the 30,000s, where we're talking 300 tops for BOD, 40 for nitrogen.
So kind of wondering, so was there a whole lot of non-compliant wastewater that was discharged?
That I wouldn't,
You wouldn't know that.
that
Kind of begs the question.
that's that I wouldn't tell you.
My second question is, why trailers and not permanent tanks? Just,
This is pretty, we have control systems going in here. There's gonna be a whole electrical room. There's gonna be an operator's control room. There'll be a chemical room. There'll be the tanks, there'll be blowers. Pumps. A
I mean, just why
DAF.
trailers? Why? It seems like a trailer mounted thing has its complaint, trailer mounted,
If there's a problem, you can pick the trailer up and I can grab a new one.
I guess that's a good answer.
In
That makes sense.
in
That's what I,
short order, right?
yeah, that's what I sort of.
That's, it's
Expected that to be the answer.
to. This is gonna be pretty permanent though, right? And I mean, it's not gonna be anchored, obviously, because it's so heavy with everything in it.
Yeah.
But all the exterior pipes you see on the front, this is the flow run. So this is gonna be facing the hill, the slopes right here, we're tucking it right in the corner. This 6 inch is gonna turn down in the ground, all these 2 inches we're catching all the way across. We're gonna bring that piping back to the existing equalization tank. All those connections are floor drains, if anything happens inside, everything's going back to the tank. Tank's set by alarms, gonna have a dialer system, it's gonna call an operator. It's pretty state of the art, you can go through a couple more if you want, Mike.
Down,
What's the estimated longevity of this system?
or you want me to go up?
Or is it just kind of per
It's equipment, right?
per
So
usage or how much it actually sees or?
that's kind of a trick question. So everything mechanical will break. At some point. The wagon wheels, we call them, the honeycombs that are in the tanks growing biology are plastic. That's forever. They don't, even if they toxic loaded it somehow, somebody killed the biological activity. You could reseed it from Stafford with Manic, Vernon, bring in half a liter of seed, put it in the tank, and that starts up in 4 hours. We're gonna keep the existing system running while we make the changes. So the bio clears are gonna remain in effect right up until I make the switch over, and the switch over is, those tanks are all full. Yeah, this is good. Water comes in, we're gonna go to a screen. It's gonna be a 3 mm screen, takes out everything. It's gonna come out of the screen, go back to that equalization tank I was talking about. It's gonna have a set of chopper pumps, send it back in to pre-D-night. From pre-D-night, this is all gravity. And the nitrification. Your mixed liquor return pumps are gonna return it back to pre-D-night. So it's constantly using the incoming BOD as a food source. So all the denitrification now happens here. The old system, denitrification was trying to happen in the sand filters. Reaeration tank. We have the blower room. And the clarifier. Clarifier / DAF. A DAF is a type of clarification where we use small micro air bubbles. We lift the solids. Get scraped off the top, goes to a sludge tank. Sludge tank will have an alarm on it. With an overflow piped back to the EQ. It's a pretty tight system. This is a nice way to do small treatment plant upgrades. So right now, we're working with the manufacturer, they're designing this. For final design, which means. We need to know what size transformer, we need those types of technique, this is what it's gonna look like, but now it's the, real technical, what size transformer, what size wires to pull. Things like that. It's pretty nice system, like I said, pretty nice way of doing it. Pouring concrete tanks. For what, right? That's. Concrete tanks are going away, everybody's going with smaller plastic style tanks. The only way we're gonna keep plastic from freezing or any type of weather related incidents is put it in this. I'm not sure what else.
So I take it, because of the size of this operation, if you lose power, you're gonna have generation to, power that, filtration and the bubbles and,
So-
whole 9 yards.
Everything is fed off of their generator.
Okay,
We don't have a specific generator for the wastewater treatment plant because FedEx, the entire facility has its own generator.
okay,
We're gonna be grabbing power. We're back out here. And we're gonna run down, up, we're gonna drop down, we're gonna come across the driveway. Pick up the water line, which is right about here. Side by side trench, come down in between these two trees and this tree. With the 2-inch copper, bend the copper up where we're coming into the trailer, and then on the other side will be the 2-inch conduit.
$20 and start getting pinholes.
I think they have a pretty good tight water system up there. They have water treatment,
Well, yeah.
I think.
When
I'm
we're
pretty positive.
natural ground is acidic here. You ever see a penny that you pull out of the garden or something after 10 or 15 years? It's not
We can
copper
put
color, it's
plastic.
green.
You can run plastic, that's fine. We got
I mean, at least,
300
at least
PSI
protect the,
HDPE we could put
at least
around.
use
Well, like,
plastic to protect the copper. I mean, that seems reasonable.
oh, sleeving it?
Yeah.
System big enough to handle an expansion if FedEx were to ever grow any larger for some reason.
Mhm. Yeah, I gotta throttle it down. I'm trying to throttle it down to 12 gallons a minute, but the screen can handle 45. So that's how low we're trying to throttle this down. These are about the smallest applications they make for this style of treatment.
Is there a very big difference in the electrical loads between the old system and the new?
Almost none. We're not, the only thing we're putting in there is a set of, they're blowers, but I think they're 3/4 horsepower and they're not positive displacement, they're regen blowers. So same thing they run at aquariums. Cause it's low head, right? Tanks are very big. We're just putting them in this tank, in this container. So tanks are only that tall. Low head pressure. Don't need big blowers. Which is gonna keep noise down. Yeah, everything will have overflows, everything goes back to the equalization tank. Equalization tank has the controls that will talk to SCADA. SCADA is gonna talk to the alarm system and dial out if there's an alarm.
I have a question, just some of the terminology, I'm not familiar with these. But it says the new multi-stage MBBR system will discharge to the existing sand filters.
Yep.
And then be directed to the existing subsurface disposal field. Sentence after that says, the existing biological system will be removed from service after MBBR performance is met. Is the biological system does not include the sand filters in the disposal field, or,
Correct,
okay. So those existing filters
stay.
stay, not gonna be disturbed and.
Not at all. I have to tie back into them.
Yeah, no,
So
I'm just clarifying that.
It's gravity. Mike, if you could zoom in a little bit right here.
Not sure I can get any.
These are the two sand filters.
All right,
Those two
there's
silver
nothing-
circles.
That's not changing.
That's not changing, so what we are doing is dropping a manhole somewhere about here, and that's to be able to gravity. To this tie point right here. That's why these two are gonna stay in service, flowing wastewater is going this way. This is the final pump station, this pump station, the pipe actually goes just like this. Sweeps out across. And then if you see these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the existing septic field. All the way in the other parking lot. On the
Okay,
other side, we're over here running from here this way.
okay. No, that's not changing.
None of that's changing. The sand filters are not changing, the valve pit. The 2 pump stations, everything's staying as is. The only thing that's being removed
Just the,
are these 2.
okay. So kind of like putting in a new septic tank and leaving the leach field alone.
Yeah. Or a fancy septic,
Oversimplification.
a fancy septic tank.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really all I got. I don't know, what the next step is for us or for you guys.
So I can speak to how it got here, so our regulations, because everything historically has been special permit for everything, we don't have a separate site plan section. And so when someone comes in and needs to do a modification, but it has nothing to do with the use of the property, there's no real mechanism in the regulations that says how they go about that. The only thing that we do have is in section 20, it says that the zoning agent can issue minor modifications. So for certain projects, like we just did it for TA, I don't wanna just issue minor modifications at the staff level and have people seeing things. So for some of these more visible sites, but bringing them in, they're effectively a site plan modification in that there's no public hearing. They're not modifying the use of the property or any of those special permit categories, criteria, et cetera. And so, you would make a decision just like you would anything else, but it's not at all related to the special permit on the property. We're just essentially have a little bit higher level of review than we would when we do something in the office. But this is not one that we wanted to just do as a zoning unit like a shed or a deck.
And this still needs DEP and health services approval for the final stages before you can start, or is this? We say as a group, hey, yeah, we're okay, and it goes the next step.
Goes the next step. Yeah, I've had so many meetings and with Deep and with Eastern Highlands, Lynette and Christopher, that it's a formality. We gotta get through the formalities of it, but this is good for everybody. It's good for them, it's good for everybody. We're improving treatment.
Anybody else have a question?
last one for me would be, says the sludge goes to a holding tank, is it a new holding tank as well? It's an existing holding tank, okay,
Interesting.
so that hasn't changed either.
Alright. And so when we met on site and looked at all this, as he mentioned, there's no change in the total number of parking spaces. This is not gonna be located in a manner that's gonna affect circulation, so the way people. I'm not sure that parking area is really very utilized. I've not seen it full, maybe in the winter, like holiday, but.
The week before Christmas.
Right, so there's not gonna be effect to the circulation, to drive aisle widths, there would be no issues with snow plowing. I'm not sure. If fire needed to be in that area, there's no changes to any of the stuff they have now. It's no different than if there were cars parked in that area, right, that's effectively the difference.
And I'm only putting an 8-inch slab. So I'm only digging down for the footings, I'm not,
Not digging to China.
Are you protecting those pipes that come out? Is there some sort of just,
they're gonna
I've
be
seen
wrapped
people-
with heat trays.
I,
with like an
I'm more
aluminum
worried
wrap.
about the stupid drivers.
It's like a bollard.
Oh, no, there's yes,
Okay,
I'm sorry, I thought you meant like.
no, just
protecting the
protect
piping.
it from stupid people.
I'm doing both, I'm putting bollards all in the front
Okay,
and around the corner,
okay,
like. 2 on each corner, all the way across the front, 2 on that back corner. And then the pipes themselves are gonna be jacketed with insulation and heat trace. Yeah, you can see the bollard, those are all the bollards right there. Well, listen, guys.
Usually, the same people.
Yeah, we're all.
hey,
Sure as heck, it's always. a
I'd put
challenge.
more if we could fit more, but.
And still people walk through the doors.
Yeah, we can't open the doors.
I've seen stupid stuff up there. So.
Oh, you know what? There is one other thing, because you might see this later when you go. Right here, because it's zoomed in, I can now see it. These are Coltech storm drain units that litter the parking lot. And these current units run this way. So what we did, we had the modeler take a look at this, and all we're doing is taking 5 of them out and moving them over. So instead of being long, I'm just gonna be a little wider, but that it didn't change anything. That doesn't change the footprint, we're still in the limit of disturbance, all that, but I figured I'd mention that because it was just zoomed in, I just caught it. But yeah, there's that corner of the park lot, it's just nice pine trees, right on that slope hill. When you drive up the driveway and you look to the left, then this will be tucked right into that corner.
So what do you need from us, Mike?
Motion. If everybody's good, and no more questions.
Everybody good?
What kind of motion do you need? A motion to
Approve.
approve.
Minor site modifications.
I move, we approve minor site modifications for 350 Ruby Road. MBL 42-048-01. Pertaining to the treatment system upgrades, applicant J. Hoffman, owner FedEx Ground Packages Systems.
Your second?
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? You're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll let you know how things go.
Yep, we'll do a notice of decision and we'll get all that to you and then just, we'll get the 100% plans.
Yeah.
We're done. Just put them, upload them right to the application.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, new business number 2, 165 River Road, MBL 15-008-00. Site plan application for conversion to 4 residential apartments. Applicant, J. C. Owner, Florida Municipal Financial Fund.
Everything's helped.
Yeah, yep. Right. Right here. So just for reference, you have the application materials that were submitted. You also have flip to the front, this section of the regulations. So we adopted regulations for South Willington Village. I mean, depending on what we did a reprint of their zoning regs, but if they're not in there, I just wanted you to have them. So this is coming in, as you'll see on the second page, as a site plan application because it's 4 units. And so up to 4 units are a site plan application, does not require a public hearing. So that is why how it's in front of you and what. So that'll just give you a little bit of a reference as you go through to the criteria that are in there, a little bit easier than flipping through the whole regs. So I'm just trying to get this.
This is if you're going up around the curve, the white buildings that sit off. The left, if you're coming towards,
That used to be the old dairy barn and then it was Jerry's Tavern.
Used to be a colonial construction.
okay, yeah, it's the grayish beige building, yeah, I know.
It's got 2 wings that stick up.
Yeah,
each end.
wondering what was gonna happen to that building. I don't know, I asked that. Someone's,
Somebody who wanted to, Bob Desk is on there for a while.
Didn't Ashley Furniture want to go in there one point.
Ashley Furniture,
Oh, yeah. Somebody, couple of them.
Oh, well, then forever, I'm gonna bring it up. So,
liked it when it was a tavern.
It was
a good restaurant.
Always good memories.
It was a good place, yeah, a lot of fun.
I gotta bring it up on this computer for some reason. It's not working.
So Mike, according to the regulations in South Willington, so this, with the 4 units, it's pretty much. We're just looking at it, there's no witness or getting other people adjacent until it goes beyond the 4.
Correct. So you're looking at compliance with the regulations, if there's specific, if there is specific, like. Modifications to the, site plan that you think, it's currently non-compliant or have issues with, you can issue. An approval with certain conditions or modifications, but you can't sort of issue. Conditions with the same flexibility that you would with a special permit. Because with a site plan, you're saying you do the following things and you meet the following criteria. It is allowable. Special permit, you're reviewing the application more on a case-by-case basis to determine if it meets the approximate criteria. So I'm gonna bring this up now.
So all the information can be found, pretty straightforward in a document. If there's a technical issue,
No, it should be, I got it up right here. I just gotta go back this one. Here we go.
something.
So. So if you wanna talk through it, I'll just tell me when you want me to switch to the next slide.
Okay, yeah, I will. Good evening, commissioners and town staff. My name is Jonathan Xu. I'm the general contractor in charge of this redevelopment project of 165 River Road, South Willington, Connecticut. And thank you very much for this opportunity to allow me to present our project. And we believe that this long distressed property, we can, have it redeveloped and bring more opportunities to the local communities. And this presentation is mainly for the zoning change application. Currently, it is being zoned as a R80 for industrial office purpose. And the the application is aiming to convert the zoning to mixed use per the zoning regulation section 5.12. So this property has total, if you can go to the next slide. So as for now, the total, the property has total of 5.24 acres of land. And the main building structure has the square footage is slightly over 12,000 square feet. Due to the scale and complexity of this project, the ownership has decided to separate the development into 3 stages. So in order for us to better understand the different stages, let's just identify the different section of the property. If you can move to the next slide. So based on the site plan, so we separate the structure into 3 sections. So the building located on the west of the property is the west wing. To the east, we call it east wing, and the wing that's located on the north, we identify as the north wing. So for us to the whole project divided into 3 stages. The stage number 1 is to have the west wing to be redeveloped into apartment building. Plus, we're going to install or repair some basic infrastructure, including the water supply, sewage, fire protection sprinkler system, parking and landscaping.
Wait,
And
just, if I can ask, why start with the west wing? Just curious.
so the west wing, so the previous owner has done some job to the west wing already. So when we took over the project, the property, we did a walkthrough of the property. It seems the start with the west wing would be, you know, the most economical.
Okay.
Yeah, way for us to do it.
Thank you.
And the stage two is to have the east wing, basically going through the same, work. With an additional water supply, sewage, parking, landscaping, and all other necessary upgrades to the building, inside and outside. The stage two is to have the north wing to be developed. But as for now, we wanted to remain as a commercial use. We're still in discussion with the architect about its, suitable usages. In terms of the timeline, we are targeting the first stage, the west wing to be completed by, October this year. And the second stage to be completed by March next year. And then the third stage to be completed by July next year. And we can go to next slide. So next, we're going to talk about the stage number one, which is pertaining to the west wing. And its basic infrastructure. So we have planned to add 4 residential units to the west wing during the first stage. You can see on the floor plan, we're going to have 2 units in the first floor, another 2 units on the second floor. There will be a total of 8 bedrooms. And the living area is going to be total of the 3,700 square feet. There's going to be a 1 3-bed apartment, 2 2-bed apartment, and 1 1-bedroom apartment. Total of 8 bedrooms. We've been talking to the Lynette Swanson, the chief sanitary in charge. So to support 8 bedrooms, there should be a septic tank with the 2,375 gallons of septic tank. And in the meantime, we also, talked to the professional civil engineer, the PE, who, help us come up with the new septic system. And we need a minimum of 1,182.5 square feet of effective leaching field. I think we can go to our next slide. We'll go back to the last one. Oh, yeah, this one. So, according to the septic and leaching field report, inspection report done by the Chris Sudila of County Line Septic LLC last year in November. The existing septic system has a 2,000 gallon 2-compartment septic tank. And right now, the effective leaching area is at the 3,270 square feet. And both the septic tank and the leaching field are in comparable condition, operable condition, and need some maintenance. So meaning that the existing septic tank is too small to support the 8-bedroom in stage 1, but the leaching field is large enough. So we hired the professional engineer, Mark Reynolds, at the Reynolds Engineering over the Hebron, Connecticut, to come up with the new septic system design. The design can be found on the site map right in front of you. So the proposal suggests to install a new 4,000 gallon septic tank So that both the septic tank and the leach field has the capacity to support 23 bedrooms. And
23 will be the maximum number once the east wing is completed as well.
So that is still a question mark. We still haven't decided how many units to be added to the east wing. But if needed, the good thing about this property is it has a large piece of land. If we need to add a new septic system, we add a new septic system.
Very good.
So, but this proposal, included in the site map is definitely exceeds the requirement for, the first stage, which is, 8 bedroom. Yeah, so this new proposal has been submitted to the East Highland, Health District, to be reviewed. Chris Butler, is responsible for the review and approval. I got in touch with him and he's going to give us a feedback in about 10 days of time. So next, yeah, we can go to the next slide. So it's about the water supply. So currently the water supply of this property is on well water. We've went through the public water screening process with the Lene and Chris. So due to the first stage capacity is less than 25 person. So that currently the wells of the existing wells of this property does not need to be registered as the public well system. But any further stages, if we access the 23 persons capacity, we have to go through the same process to make sure it's registered as a public water system.
How many wells are on the property now?
There's only one right now.
Only one.
Yes. And we will hire licensed professionals to test the well water to make sure it's safe to drink. And we'll do that regularly to make sure, it's the quality of the water will be monitored the entire time.
Mike, I was wondering if it might be of interest to know what the flow rate is on that well on the property.
I think that part of their review with Eastern Highlands, they'll have to do a water test and you'll have to provide that to them. Because like when you build a house, they require the water test before you get the CO.
Sure.
So what the PWS is basically, if you have a certain occupancy or you're serving a certain number of people, you have to register as a public water supply. And so there's those additional requirements. So they're not at the threshold yet, but they may get to it. So I don't know if they have that well testing information yet. I think they've been focusing on the septic, but have you done any well testing yet or?
So far we haven't done any tests yet.
Just with four apartments and looking at the potential for others there, wonder if the well has the capacity for that.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I believe in one of the report, I don't know if I uploaded it yet, but it seems Chris has already reviewed
Chris from Eastern Highlands or Chris Satila from County Line?
East Highland.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a form that showing he has checked the capacity of the well, and it seems it's all good. And I can have that document uploaded.
Okay. I'm just curious about that. And if you had a well that only has a flow rate of 6 gallons a minute,
With poor recovery,
you're at poor recovery.
low static.
And
you're kind of shooting
that
yourself in the
means you
foot.
need to have some kind of a reservoir to draw water from. And
Yeah, so this is going, because this is gonna be housing, they're gonna have to provide all that information to Eastern Highlands before they're allowed to. Occupy any of the units, and I think as he's gonna get to, they're also gonna be doing a sprinkler system, so like, that's all gonna be provided.
Okay,
Those yield tests, I mean, we have information now, and obviously, there's been several uses of the property previously, so, those are all things that they're gonna have no choice but to meet public health code.
right, I think this project, you know, I'm behind it 100% to reinvigorate that building. But this is a use that we haven't been to before. And water, you know, everybody says water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. So,
Well, I was gonna ask about that, if we decided to change this to mixed use. Are we deciding what the potential for all the other parcels are on that right now? Because if he's looking to add more units later on, shouldn't they show where possible wells could actually even go to service it in the future and have that more of an extensive plan?
absolutely,
We're this one portion, it works for what's here. Where's the other septic field gonna go? Where's the reserve gonna go? Where's the extra wells coming from? And that should all be laid out saying, this is gonna go in conjunction with phase 2, phase 3, and
So. Here's why I'm gonna push back on that. By requiring them to demonstrate future phases now. You are, in some ways, it could be considered that you're providing some sort of tacit approval on those phases. So if he wants 4, he needs to demonstrate he's met the criteria for 4. If he wants to go to 5 or he wants to go to 500, he's got that burden. When he makes that request.
Right.
That would be a new application.
Right, so one of the things that we touched on is he is asking for 4. No matter what the next unit, when he gets to 5+, he needs to come back, and that's a special permit.
gotcha.
So, it's certainly within your purview to feel comfortable that there is adequate provisions for water and adequate provisions for septic on site. The specifics of how all that's designed, what those yields are, how big the trench is, all those things, those are fully within the realm of Eastern Highlands, and he has to, even if you say, we think the yield you've shown us is adequate, if Lynette says it's not, it doesn't matter what you said. So it's, they're gonna have to deal with all of that. You uploaded the document from, so there's a document that was provided, I don't think you might have it. And it's from the drinking water section of the state DPH. Basically confirming that because of the type of application and the number of persons, they don't meet the criteria and can skip the registration as a public water system and need to go through Eastern Highlands.
Yeah, and they know that in the future stages, if we wanted to expand the units, yeah, we are already flagged for that. So they know that we have to go through the same process.
Say that again, Mike, that by just thinking of future applications, by asking for, I was thinking the same thing that Mike mentioned, that we want to find out about this, but by asking them to do that at this stage, where we know that these stages are coming, or they've said they might, but we have no application on the table. By asking them to do that extra work, that could almost be that we've already pre-approved it. You just said words to that effect.
I think you could,
That must be based on something you've seen happen, I'm guessing.
well, I think one of 2 things. One, you're asking for them to spend time and resources on a future phase, which they don't, may not.
Maybe they might not ever do it, they
And
might
it's-
change their mind.
It's sort of reverse engineering what is really well established, which is that you can't require. You can't condition your approval on the approval of another agency, so you can't say, yeah, you're good to go. But first, you need to go and ask the fire department for their approval. And so in sort of that same mindset, asking them to design beyond what they're asking for. In an area that is
Not our,
under the umbrella of
that's
someone
not
else.
even our first, right, okay.
Right, because the public health code is not like zoning regulations, you can't get variances or special permit, you meet it, or you don't do
But
it,
you don't, okay.
yeah. So,
So one of the things I think that we have to understand also is that we're dealing with the South Willington Village mixed use zone.
That's true.
So that's different than what we usually deal with in the rest of town. Okay, and that's sort of spilled out here. That's why with and correct me as I go through this, Mike. So they're proposing 4 units. That's fine according to the village regulations. If, once they go to 5, then it's a special permit. Then we have to have a public hearing. Am I right so far?
yes, you are.
So this is between us and the people doing the development because it's in the Willington Village District. And it sort of spills out. The whole idea of when they went to have that village district was to try to encourage various uses, multiple uses. You know, Willington doesn't have a main street. So South Willington is our best bet for having something that might be similar, you know, B and Bs and such are allowed in that zone. So that's what we're dealing with here, and I'd say it's different than what we would normally deal with, if somebody wanted to put up a duplex or something like that. Gotcha. And this is one of the buildings in town, we don't have very many buildings existing that can be redone to benefit the community, and this is one of them. So, I mean, this is a good thing that's happening.
So does it need to be rezoned now or not until?
It's actually not a rezone,
Okay,
it's just a site plan application essentially. So this is at the top end of the South Willington Village
Yeah.
zone. So they're in that zone and they're operating based upon that table of uses. So 4 is permitted, 5+ special permit. So you're not changing the zoning, that was already done. I'm just looking here quickly and I'll take this for what you want. This is a completion report from 1974, which says that at the time, the well for the one portion of the building, it looks like comes off of. It's yielding 30 gallons a minute.
Wow, that's terrific.
Well, it's at the bottom of that big hill.
Yeah, right, with a couple
I'm
of
surprised,
springs on the other
I'm
side.
surprised it doesn't free flow.
Yeah, I think the site map also shows on roughly where the well location is.
I'm looking at this regulation, I haven't looked at it in a long time, but mixed use, once it goes, that's. Multifamily dwellings of 5 or more units. Okay, new is just special permit, it doesn't exclude it from the zone, it just means it's a special permit.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So we were trying to encourage use of the buildings, but we're also trying to make use of the buildings as they stand. So by allowing the lower level of review for the sort of reuse without, you know, demolition and taking down everything that's there, that was sort of why some of those new uses, even though they don't necessarily cause a lot of concern, we wanted to increase our ability to sort of preserve what was going on there.
This proposal seems to dovetail very nicely into that, though.
Oh, it does.
It's interesting to see it all on one property, and we were thinking of it as sprinkled throughout the village district, but this is an interesting part.
Yes,
It seems to.
well, I guess it's no different than what they're doing in Mansfield. Parking
Right.
upstairs,
Yeah, right, well,
retail
that's-
downstairs.
I think it was insurance companies that killed that, but I guess with modern firefighting techniques and detection, it comes to that, you know. Becomes viable, and yeah, it used to be main streets, you stayed away from those with commercial insurance.
Yeah,
We can go to
Fire.
the next slide.
well, you can
Yeah,
speak,
sorry.
One more question.
you can speak to that.
Yeah, a little bit, like I kicked off the team, to say.
Mike?
How does this project affect traffic flow or the safety egress and, you know, from that site?
So,
It's kind of on a curve coming down the hill.
so that I can pull up. After if you want, some information from the. ITE, which is how traffic engineers determine trips per day, but generally. The number of daily trips for a residential unit. Particularly ones that are more than one bedroom are significantly lower than an office, which is the previous use. So like there's existing 17 or 19 parking spaces on the property, so for 4 units. Even if you have, multiple cars per unit, your average trips per day, the number of times those folks are gonna go in and out. Significantly less than what it was. They're not. Considered to be what qualifies as a major traffic generator for OSTA or DOT that would require any permitting. And honestly, because this is a residential use and not something that's more commercial in nature. We don't worry about what we normally would, which is how we get trucks in and out. Because they're in the passenger vehicle, which is the smallest that you're gonna see. We're not worried about how is 18-wheeler gonna get in and bring food or bring stock, or how are you gonna get a triaxle in and out? So the curb cut is proposed to remain. We don't have any issues on our end with it staying there. And the added benefit is that they will be new users when they go to the site, but then they'll become residents and immediately thereafter are familiar. So you'll have a period of time where they're learning, oh, I gotta watch myself, I gotta make sure this or that, but after that, it's where they live. And so you don't have something like a medical office where you have different people coming all the time and they're having to figure that out every day. So it should be a non-issue.
And the Fish and Game is almost right across the way, and there's constantly cars in and out of there.
Yeah, if you
They have a
look,
good view from both sides.
if you
But
look,
as long as we're not overlooking this, I'm fine. I just wanted to ask the question.
yeah, no, I'm trying to. Using my share here, so
It's 25 there now, right? Most of it. Follows it.
you can kind of see,
Even the
Fishing game
even the
is right
state
over
police slide off that road.
Yeah, yeah,
When they're going along. They hit my daughter's house twice.
Really?
Yeah, up on 177.
Oh, no.
Yeah. The road can be, can carry a lot of water.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so you can see. Fishing game is right, kind of
Right.
Right across the street.
right over here,
Yeah, they're in kind of a sweet spot for visibility.
because they're on a little bit higher up.
Yeah. And they see both, they can see there's nothing that comes around a corner to it,
Yeah,
whereas it does up above this, but as long as, we were happy with having more traffic there, we'd certainly be happy now.
so the other thing that I'll mention, which is not. It's not coming up quite through here, but the South Willington Village Sidewalk Project does propose improvements basically up through the middle. And that will include a pedestrian protected crosswalk with rapid flashing beacons. So they're gonna be dealing with that from the school to the mill. There's gonna be raised islands in the middle of the road. We're gonna be reducing lane widths for the express purpose of reducing speed. Because the state was not interested in entertaining a request to reduce the posted speed limit. So we're gonna narrow the lane widths, have those planted islands where there's place for the pedestrians to be, and then some of them are up there, they're sort of the flashing lights, so that when people are crossing, they're much higher, and so as you're coming down to the approach, you're gonna see that someone's in the road. It's not gonna come as far as this, but at least traffic heading towards West Willington from Mansfield, they're gonna be moving or should be much slower because the last crossing is right at the top end where the parking lot is for the mill. So they're gonna be going through that raised island there. So it'll slow down half of the traffic.
That's good. We'll also make them more conscious of thinking that there's police presence because,
Yeah,
there is a certain amount more police presence with the school area. And it's gonna look like one continuous zone.
and you're gonna have 2 less feet, right? Cause they're going, I think, from 16 to 14 or 14 to 11, I can't remember. We're at the minimum of what DOT will allow. So you're not gonna be able to really whip down that hill and come through because you're gonna be curved on both sides. So will they still? Yes. I think that when they put those traffic boxes out, they've grabbed a couple of speeds above 70. But once those islands are in there, you're gonna,
70 once.
it should make it much harder, should make it much harder. That's the whole thing, right?
That's what they did on Town Green too.
Yeah, right, that you,
Well, theirs aren't raised,
No,
but,
yeah,
and
They got those islands in the middle and they,
And every Wednesday when I go to the town hall, I go over that island and it goes, and then I, it doesn't really. And so that was one of the things we discussed is that doesn't really have the same effect. And DOT told them, we don't want the raised islands because it's harder to maintain and plow, blah, 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 blah. And that's what they told us initially, but, we were very adamant that we were trying to achieve something and we have a school here and parking lot across the street, et cetera. So
Gee, they listened to him about that in Mansfield,
what?
going through Mansfield Center,
Yeah,
downtown with the raised areas and stuff.
yeah. Yeah.
Same road.
Yeah, it'll be, hopefully successful.
If you can bring back, the slides, one more slide. Oh, bring back, go back. Yep, right here. Yeah, so, next is to, talk about the updates to the building. So we are going to do all the necessary repair, redo, or upgrades to, roofing, siding, egress, staircases, electrical, HVAC, plumbing. We make sure, all the jobs are done by the licensed to trades and conforms to the latest building codes. And in terms of the interior decoration, we are aiming to, to make this as a little bit high-end decoration. So we already start ordering the hardwood cabinets, granite countertops and luxury vinyl planks. To make sure, it's a high quality families and professional persons to live in those units. And most importantly, we're going to add the fire protection sprinkler system that meet the NFPA 13 specification, which is a commercial grade. And we're going to spend a lot of budget into, make sure this system is really robust. So the parking landscaping, so the parking existing paved parking lot can be separated into around like a 20 to 24.5 parking spaces. So we have enough parking space to accommodate the 8 bedrooms on the first stage. In the future, moving forward, we're definitely going to add more to the other side of on the other side of the lot. Or, anywhere that, once we discuss with the engineer or the land surveyor, anywhere that's, good for us to add more parking space, we're going to definitely add the more parking space. And for the landscaping, for the first stage, we're going to do, cleanups. We push back those overgrown area a little bit, and we're going to, clean up around the building. We're also going to redo the walkways to clean up, to level. And we're going to add a pavilion in the middle of the three, where the 3 wings are. And creating flower beds to make it more delightful for the residents. So basically that is our proposal, the plan for this project. And just a footnote from the ownership. So the ownership is currently under tremendous pressure of paying the mortgage without any income from this project, from this property. So, anything any effort that we could, move this project forward would be much appreciated. So, and, we hope that the commission could, review and help us approve this application. And that's it. Any other questions?
No, I look forward, Rebecca, though, any issues with two-story dwelling, I mean, we don't.
Not if it's sprinklered, because then they have to have a fire department connection on the outside,
Okay.
and there's a staircase to that
All right.
too.
You're on a whole
And
lot.
they have, and the new codes, the detectors are all electronic detectors.
That sprinkler system, the dry system, or wet system,
In this area, dry.
they're the one you propose them, just 'cause I'm not familiar, but.
Yeah, everything around here is dry. Even FedEx is a dry system. That's occupied. The wet ones break. Very break.
So on our end, we need to. A motion.
Yeah, so the only thing that we need to verify and, like I said, we can do it it can be done as a condition, is, that if you look at the requirement in the section, we're tying density to soils. So we don't allow people to build more units than the soils on the property support. So he submitted everything Eastern Highlands, but we don't have a response from Eastern Highlands yet. His skip septic was out there, in 2021, county line, Chris, who lives here in town, did an inspection. We know what the system is, everything's been submitted, but I think just, conditioning the approval that we get. Basically the confirmation from Chris, they're gonna have to do it no matter what, but just so that we have information in our file that the septic design is compliant with soils, would be the only thing. The parking on site is appropriate, they're not proposing any other exterior changes. It's hard to see, but this floor plan has been designed by a licensed architect, submitted to the building department, so that'll be reviewed. Everything else, is sort of in alignment. We don't have any other specific requirements. We can't establish minimum dwelling unit sizes. It's not the intent here, but obviously we, with our accessory dwelling unit regulations for any type of unit, we don't allow short-term rentals, so you couldn't lease these for like less than 90 days, which I don't think is your intent. So, there's nothing else that's really applicable. And you're really not gonna see much from the outside other than things being cleaned up in the cars. And the only other thing is they are planning to remove this sort of dilapidated portion of the building here.
I was gonna ask about that, I wanted to
Yeah.
know, what was that all about?
It's open on the backside, it's like a lean-to or something, it's,
Oh, just for storage or something.
yeah, this
That
piece.
will be demolished.
There was a lumber yard, lumber,
That's all I always thought, yeah,
there was a lumber fabricator
yeah.
for moldings and
Yeah,
such.
you can kind of see it up there, like where they might have had
And that's where they stored all their lumber in the back there.
Yeah, all right, so that, I was gonna ask about that.
that, so that dark section.
That dark section's coming.
But everything else is, I mean. Sprinkler, building code, health code, it's all heavily.
So our motion would say pursuant to, approval by the Eastern Highlands Health District.
That they provide.
That Eastern Highlands
Yeah.
provides all of the relevant documentation. Then we wouldn't have to.
Oh, you wanna take the?
Okay, let me give it a, all right, let me
Give it a whirl.
read the agenda here. My spectacles. All right, I would like to make a motion to approve. The site plan application, 165 River Road, NBL 15008-00. Site plan application for a conversion to 4 residential apartments. Making this one, the motion is compliant with the South Willington Village Mixed Use Zone. And I recommend that we approve this pursuant to Eastern Highland Health District's approval of all applicable water and septic, and then we have that documentation in file.
Second.
So, real quick question, so once we have the result, do we have to come back to the same meeting?
You can provide it to us.
Okay,
If for some reason that. It doesn't happen, if you got denied by Eastern Highlands, then you may have to come back, but otherwise, we just need to. Sort of close the loop on that and confirm that everything that your engineers have found Eastern Highlands is in agreement with.
All right, thank you so much.
No other chat? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, good to go on that one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For your explanations.
Good one, guys. Two.
We haven't had a meeting, so.
Unfinished business, draft amendments. For section. 11.01, home occupations.
So. We've talked about this a lot and we've made a lot of changes and had a lot of discussion, considered a lot of. Possibilities. After the last meeting, there was a bunch of things that we discussed and a bunch of notes that I had to change, make amendments. Based upon what the commission talked about, and because we're really flipping the regulation on its head based on what we have. And taking it and making a red line that somehow you can follow, it just was not coming out the way that I had hoped, so that you could kind of really see it. We're changing so much that it just wasn't workable. So what I did is I just put together the sections to be reflective of the language that we have talked about. And taken a lot of content from the existing regulations, but it's formatted in a different way. So there's not a really good productive sort of way to show it in a red line. You can look at the old version and I can show you, but just to kind of touch on it quickly. So section 3 would be where we would be adding the definitions, because we don't define these currently. So because we are taking this and making tiers, we can't just say home occupations, because home occupations actually mean something in that table, which we've been looking at. So what we're calling this is home businesses. So we're defining the home business and then saying that a home business includes the 3 tiers of in-home business types that we've discussed. We have the definition of equipment, business vehicle, and commercial vehicle, which we talked about previously. And then we get into the actual meat of the regulation. One of the things that I will point out is that we talked a lot about what types of vehicles should come home, what types of vehicles should not come home, how to regulate them, etc. So one of the things that I did, and it gets partially to what we talked about, but doesn't get exactly, which is this idea of truck and trailer, etc., etc. When you look at the definitions and look at some of the ways that commercial vehicles are measured elsewhere, this 26-foot length shows up. So what I did, just as a place to start, is include the definition of a commercial vehicle, which is a vehicle that doesn't exceed 26 feet. So again, that sort of puts a cap on it. I don't know what vehicle, there's only really a tractor trailer. I can't think of something else that would be in excess of 26 feet, and maybe that, I'm sure I'm missing them, but I'll just leave that there, we can come back to it. The rest of the, actually. So one of the things that we talked about was clarifying that there not be overlap in how these are issued, so you don't have multiple coming in and that they're non-transferable. So we added language to.
Are you in permits required? Cause I've got a question.
Okay.
before we go any
Hit me.
further. So you have one under A, permits required, you have one has the word home occupation by certificate of zoning compliance. But then you have home occupation and or rural business by special permit. If you look at the table, home occupations don't have special permit, or is that from past special permits? I got confused on that one, cause I saw the same words twice and I'm,
Occupations and or businesses by special permits shall be reviewed.
Where you?
very front page, permits required.
Number two.
Oh,
No, I think that just is from. That's existing language from the current regs and it's just a holdover, so
Okay,
I think you're right, home occupations gets.
it should just, number two should be rural businesses
Yes,
by special, okay.
Yep.
Yep,
um. So,
sorry, I threw you off, like.
it's okay. So you go to the second page, you'll see on number 5. Any approval issued for a home business pursuant to this section shall be issued to the occupant of the dwelling at the time such permit is requested for this the special business described. Should say specific. Such approval shall be terminated upon sale or transfer of the property. So that is getting to not wanting things to just morph and grow as things change. So we talked about large equipment and vehicles parked, and how to deal with screening. Right. Equipment, vehicles parked. So one of the things that I think the commission talked about, that may have been the one that I was not comfortable coming up with some good language, but one of the things that I had kind of taken away from the last discussion was if somebody has something that comes home because they're passing through and they're there for a day, is that a big deal? But do we want to treat that differently than someone who comes home every day? And I'd written down sort of contemplating this idea that vehicles parked or sort of resident vehicles returning to the property, whatever, at a threshold of, let's say, 3 days or 2 days needs to be screened. And I think I tried to figure out how we could get there. And I couldn't come up with some type of language other than what is in there now, which is commercial vehicles and or equipment associated with a home occupation or rural home business shall be stored indoors or visually screened. I think if we were to say, if it's on the property for more than 2 days, it needs to, it qualifies as that and it needs to be screened. We then get into this cat and mouse. Well, I was there for 2 days and then I left. Right, so, I think we create other sort of enforcement issues. If the commission feels really strongly that we're okay if someone stops for a day, but if they wanna be there for 2 or more. We think it ought to be screened and it ought to be this and it ought to be that, then. We can think a little bit further into it. The other reason that this language is clarified under screening is that in my mind, if somebody is driving an 18-wheeler for. Pick a random company, Swift, and they have the truck, if they're coming home for the day. It's gonna park there and it's gonna leave, but the equipment isn't associated with the home, with the property. So this is saying a commercial vehicle or equipment associated with a home occupation or rural business shall be. Which means if somebody has equipment that's associated with the occupant of the property that's on the site, it needs to be visually screened, period. If it's a commercial vehicle or equipment, if it's a business vehicle, it doesn't. So a business vehicle can be on the property, it can be parked in the driveway, it can be visible from the street. But if it's a commercial vehicle or piece of equipment and it's related to a home occupation, then it needs to be screened. I'm not sure how else we.
right, so, well, if I'm driving the company truck. And I'm an employee of someone else, it's not a home occupation, that vehicle isn't associated with the home occupation. Therefore, our regulations would apply.
Well, yeah, so that kind of gets to another gap.
All right,
Is that,
that's fine.
yes,
So but, so if I have if I'm an independent trucker, that's a home business.
If you're an independent trucker, you own your tractor and you have that on your property. That would qualify as a commercial vehicle.
Okay, what if I have an office in town, in an office building? If I have a separate office and I park my truck in my home,
If you
do
have,
I have a home business? Or do I have, no,
you
so
don't,
it wouldn't apply.
it would not apply. And our regulations currently don't address just straight up commercial vehicles. We don't say, for example, tow trucks.
Yeah.
That's actually a surprising sort of gap, is that we don't say, generally speaking, these types of vehicles can or cannot be parked.
Right. So,
That would have to be sort of handled separately, but
I'm just thinking of the enforcement side, so I'm driving down the road and I see somebody that says, Andy's trucking, and it's parked in the front yard. And I look at the town, and there's no home registered home business, so. Then we would have to somehow write a letter to that resident to say, are you currently operating a business out of your home? And they say, no, I just drive truck for whoever pays me. It's like, well, okay, I guess I don't really, I mean, the enforcement part seems a little tricky.
so one of the things that we'd have to.
I'm not
kind of
against
think
this,
about.
I don't.
Yeah, no. It's, so we have the language which I've added, which is a commercial vehicle is a motor vehicle not to exceed 26 feet in length. Arguably, what that means is home business or not home business, this is going in the definitions.
Yeah.
And so if you have something that exceeds 26 feet in length, even if you had a home business, you can't have it there.
Yeah, right.
So I think, though, better language separate from home occupations would be good. If we had someone who was parking an 18-wheeler here on their property, that they didn't own, that had nothing to do with the business, the house. I think you could argue that it exceeds 26 feet. Because the other remedy is, hey, you've got this piece of equipment, you need a home occupation permit. And you can say, oh, okay, I'll apply for one, let's go through the criteria. Oh, well, geez, I have a, 53-foot tractor
Yeah,
trailer. Well, I can't have that, right? So if the only process, which is home occupation, doesn't allow for it, I think you'd have to have it somewhere else.
Farms, are they part of this?
Farms are a separate use, so I would say that would not be.
Farms by state definition or town, because we consider a town different than what to be a state farm, you have to earn a certain amount of income. For our regs, farm is just 5 acres or more.
Use of the property as a farm, right, would qualify, correct. So, and we have had issues in the past with a farm in town that has hay. And the hay comes in and out on an 18-wheeler and they've got sites in other states, et cetera. But that's not a home occupation, it wasn't permitted as such 6 or 8 years ago.
Mike, I got a question. We have permit fees that we assign for, different businesses in town. And I noticed something else in one of the handouts, how Tallinn had a permit fee that sent $60 to the state, but the town instituted a $300 permit fee for that particular endeavor. So that makes me think that the town might have some freedom, some flexibility as far as what do they really want to charge for different activities. And right now we have basically the town is supported by property tax, except for whatever it gets from, other governmental sources. So we pay house taxes, we pay vehicle taxes. And if there were vehicles that were used in an occupation that are registered in town, that would be one way to know how much usage that particular business is getting out of our town roads. Because you'd know if they were running triaxles, or you'd know if they were running heavier trucks, normal and heavier than your normal residential usage. And that might be able to generate some additional funds to put towards an idea like Tallinn has with that commercial space. It would also generate funds for the town to use as desired. I mean, if they had to do more road repair and stuff, I saw that, in the Willington, the state reps, newsletter for Willington. She reports that Wellington's gonna be getting $2 million of federal funds for road repairs.
Yep.
And that's good, and probably doesn't do the whole thing. And we could kind of generate some more funds on our own. It might also deal with some of the grandfathering that's happened where you have farms that turn into construction sites, construction enterprises. And now they're not running tractors, they're running triaxles over dirt roads in our town, which are really, beating up that road. Daleville Road for one, Marco Road. And as well as some of the other paved secondary roads, Eldridge, Benny Hill, whatever. So that might give us another bite at the apple, so to speak. Since we're dealing with companies that are grandfathered in, if we looked at what kind of equipment they use and what the impact was by comparing, what they have registered in town and what their use is, it might represent a way to encourage people to have businesses where businesses belong, or encourage people to make use of town-owned commercial sites that could be contributed to by some of these funds, some of these fees that are raised. It's kind of a big idea, but it just seemed like we're really jamming a lot down the throat of R80, and it would be nice to be able to have some other options.
You have the ability to recommend and establish. Well, towns can establish whatever fees they want. You can't establish fees which qualify as impact fees, which is, essentially, 50,000 square foot building pays X, 100,000 square feet pays double X. But permit types can certainly have different fee schedules based upon whatever the request is, or something along those lines. The Board of Selectmen adopts fees, so you'd recommend a fee schedule, and the Board of Selectmen would adopt it. These are by ordinance. So the special permit, our fee schedule is a little bit hard to follow in some respects, but special permit, and for some of them, modification, there's no special permit. 175 plus 60. That's what we're charging now. And so the way that it had been set up previously is that they would charge a separate site plan application fee for submitting the drawing, and then a special permit for the use, and then $60 for the state. So, yeah, I think our fee schedule is out of date. But certainly look at updating it. The home occupation for in R80 zones is $25. That's what we're charging.
And if you were to equate it to, say, like metered usage of a resource, water, electricity, whatever, the more you use, generally, the more you pay. So if we're looking at somebody's 40,000 pound, dump truck having the same usage as, say, 2,500 contractor's truck, the impact is hugely different. And it definitely eats up more resources when you're running the heavier equipment. The other thing I think it might present an opportunity for is for us to, I don't know if we have this ability, but to kind of work more hand in hand with the EOC, what is it called?
Economic development.
Economic development. And, throw that idea out to them and see what they think of trying to develop a town commercial spot where people could go in and use parking, use bare bones buildings. And not have to cover all of the expenses that go along with acquisition of property and buildings and approvals. So you kind of like be streamlining and creating a commerce park. And some of this money might go towards that. It's a rough idea, but just seemed like it might be an option to what we're doing.
Well, most towns do have an industrial park, you know. Where there's various levels of commercial businesses. It's something that I think the this EDC study is it's worthwhile bringing up when they have the town-wide meeting. It's something that you might want to address to those folks that are doing that study. Because Willington, you know, in a way, we're pounding a round peg into a square hole.
Yeah.
You know, we're championing R80, but allowing industrial or commercial to pop up in neighborhoods. I mean, you know, as Andy had mentioned, you know, it's one of these things that has evolved over time. But it gets, you know, maybe it's time for us to start thinking about an industrial park. It's, and that's part of a town plan. So this,
Right.
this EDC study might be a good starting point to start discussions about something like that.
It doesn't sound like the residents are much in tune with that. Based on recent budget votes and for the town to buy stuff, it seems a little bit troublesome.
That's why you have to have an alternate source of income to try to put towards that.
And no. We tried. Prior years, we talked about increasing fees and. Most of the other select are really on board.
This would be a different style of fee. It wouldn't really be the application fees. You know, that would look so out of.
I think what Mike just said, though, that's all we can do. We can't judge a fee based on usage.
Yeah.
That we have to do it as part of, if we're gonna increase the amount, all we can do is increase the fees permits for everyone. That they're not subjected to the usage. It's home occupation fee is X, and is that right? Is that what if I heard you correctly?
We'd have to just figure out a way to tie it so that it wasn't. It didn't qualify essentially as an impact fee, so we'd have to change either the type of application or. Break it down in some way so that they could basically request, you know, for home occupation and have, you know, certain vehicles permitted or.
Right, so home occupation with no vehicles could be X, home occupation with vehicles could be Y, and based on our definition, it would be a little more complex, but.
Or we could try to further separate out the
Definition.
way that this is shown here. So rather than just saying certificate of zoning compliance, you know, we could make more categories so that the categories that happen to allow for more vehicles have a different rate.
Maybe it's more of an assessor problem. You know, if the assessor is gonna look at, okay, we got triaxes here. These are gonna cost more to operate on our roads.
Yeah, I was thinking. What? But town tax is based on value, not on use, right? I think, right, so.
Yeah.
That old triax, you pay less than a new ones, but it doesn't help, the impact is the same, whether your triax is 20 years old or.
Brand new.
What
I mean, we're kind of stuck, really.
No, it's an interesting point, where does the town, how does a town? Reflect that. Or understood that heavier vehicles put more stress on roads. So if you had a business, if you had a road that had 4 or 5 fairly large home trucks from the home business, that road would arguably be repaired sooner. Where does that money come from based on the use it doesn't?
Devil's advocate is, what if you're on a state road? You have your home occupation on a state road, then.
That would be good. I mean,
But,
if you look at our plan of conservation and development, that is kind of what we tried to do. Is manage it so most of your heavy industry is on the state highways and not on the town roads. And that's why the P O C D kind of targets your commercial zones along Route 32, Route 74. And, you know,
Only when you have 5 triaxles sitting on a farm.
No, I know what you're, I was thinking more like 320 was
Yeah, yeah.
out of there,
I
and
know.
then
Yeah, yeah.
everybody who was at the other
Absolutely,
end.
those are
you
built.
know. Yeah.
They're built, those are really resistant.
So where's everybody wanna go with this? Kind of food for thought, and then we wanna take
That's
a
pretty
break.
much what I was thinking.
You wanna
We
take-
have to send this, what would be the next step, Mike? Does
Public
this go to CROG?
So if you feel like it's close to being ready, or that any potential changes would qualify as being not significant or more restrictive, then we could refer it to CROG, so you can make those during the hearing. Or we can, if you have other things that you're interested in, we can talk about other stuff that you want me to try to incorporate.
That's
I
what you
would-
did.
I would be, right, well, I would make a motion that we send, I'm gonna make a motion, I don't get a second, it doesn't go anywhere. I make a motion that we send this with the minor, with some of the grammar corrections there on the section 2, modify that. That needs to be modified, send it to CROG. What is that, Capital Regions,
Council government.
Council of Government. Capital Regions, Council of Government. And get their input on it. And that might temper or that could help us make sure that we're on track.
Second, that motion.
Any discussion?
I still have a problem with the home occupation, forcing the guy to screen a 53-foot truck. So
You want?
I still have a problem with forcing the guy to screen a 53-foot truck. If that's.
Yeah, I,
So I'm not gonna support it, sorry.
And under this, I just wanna be clear, under the way that I put this in here, and this is just me trying to figure out based on the conversation, 26 feet is the maximum dimension of a commercial vehicle. Period. Now, I used that just from things that I've read and trying to establish approximately what you might see and what your average vehicle might be, but I think that's something that you should kind of, have some sense with. I'm not, it's your regulation, I'm not suggesting 26 feet is any dimension.
But all CROG does is make sure we're not wildly different than the surrounding towns and that we are not in violation of any. I mean, I've been to them, they just kind of sit around, like, this is Willington, what do you think? And everybody goes, it's fine, or it stinks, I don't know.
Conflict, to make sure it does not conflict with regional plans or policies.
That's right, that's all it does, it doesn't have anything to do with whether or not they like our regs, just that it doesn't conflict.
Right.
So as long as we get that out of the way.
Mhm.
I guess this is under discussion of the motion.
But if you're looking to change it, say they come back and they say, yeah, it's fine, are you gonna go through the exercise of modifying it again or
Sure.
before? I mean, it comes back from Broadway,
Well, we
it's gonna
can.
have a vote, you don't.
It doesn't bother me to send it to CROG 5 times, I really don't. It's,
Changing something like that, screening requirements those are not such substantial changes that would require another review. This is, we're setting up a tiered system for in-home
Right.
businesses. I don't think they're gonna have a problem, but the things that we're talking about here, I think we could do post referral. Next step would be, we have to give them 30 days and then schedule a public hearing. All of these things I think can be done through the public hearing process, before the commission makes a decision. These are not so substantial that it would require a complete referral.
no, it just,
One of the things is, as we move forward with this and we have a public hearing, we'll hear from the people that might have a right about what they don't like to see.
Mhm.
And it,
Maybe.
and it gives all of us more of an insight of what people are thinking.
Mhm.
You know, I think of us as the first step, we throw it out there and let people tell us what they want to stick and what they don't want to stick.
And also part of my thought about Prague is that if it does conflict with something, let's find out now. So we can, because that would be a fairly high level change that would require probably some, I don't think we were gonna get that. Because it doesn't seem to be outside of what other surrounding towns are doing, but just thought it's a way to say, okay, we checked that off. We're not in conflict with any regional plans or anything else. So we can now be comfortable with the format. And the overall, now if we're talking about these specific definitions, and I don't disagree with you about the large trucks, and I mean, the whole screening thing was bothering me quite a bit. Just because it does seem to be quite a burden to screen everything that you might want to do. And, but anyway, this is just about the crop thing. And that's the discussion about that I have, is that send it to them, make sure we're not in any egregious violations of surrounding. There are no conflicts, and then. One more thing we gotta do. In a sense, to kind of move this forward a little bit, because we've been talking about it for a long time. And we don't have to approve it. We'll agree to that.
That's
We can
comments.
still do that.
If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed,
Hey,
abstentions, okay, we'll send that off to CROG.
Fantastic.
Approval of minutes. Everybody have a chance to, look those over?
It was so long, if there was something wrong, I wouldn't have known. They were very good minutes, by the way.
2 editorials for me,
What's that?
2 editorials for me.
No, good for you.
Top of page 4. D. Roberts believes that the nuisance with the tractor trailer, I think I may have said issue. Instead of nuisance. That's good, right there. And then. Bottom of page. 6. D. Roberts, he was trying to create a trying not to create a financial hardship on the guy that is driving the truck. But if it is there for skip you. And then no should be spelled NOW, more than 3 days. And it's stored in the bank.
So those changes, you good?
Yep,
Bottom of page 3. We've all mentioned there are people that store, not store.
Okay. Everybody need a minute or more? Minute or so? Last call for corrections. All those in favor of approving the minutes as, where's the word? Amended, thank you. Signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Okay.
I'm sorry, parliamentary procedure, did we have a motion to approve the minutes as corrected, or did we just vote on them as corrected?
as corrected, I think they're okay by amendment. But
Okay.
saying approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, I didn't know if we need a motion to approve them as amended. Alright. Random question.
Correspondence, Mike?
Just, I think. Yeah, so this coming Monday, the Tallinn Planning and Zoning Commission will be considering a text amendment to their home occupation regulations to permit, up to 5 commercial vehicles by special permit. And I know what this is because I am involved in it. I think I might have told you, there's some property on the town line that is like 8 acres and it's a mother, father, son that drive tractor trailers. They have 3 tractors on the property and the adjacent neighbor that's nearest to the house. So the driveway comes back and the houses are here, so they're quite close. Doesn't like the trucks that are there. So we let them know it was in violation. They aren't able to have what they have there, and they've decided to ask the commission to consider allowing more of the more commercial vehicles by special permit. So they've submitted a text amendment, which will be going forward. So it would, if you look at page, if you have it, it's the back of the second page. No more than 6 business vehicles, 1 commercial vehicle, and 1 hauling trailer may be stored. And then in italics, however, on sites of 8 acres or more, the commission may permit up to 4 additional commercial vehicles. So the 6, 1, and 1 is what they have, what they can have now. They have the commercial vehicle, which they could have the 1 tractor. So they're asking for that. You'll see they're proposing to add language similar to what we were talking about, which is that none of the permits should be transferable. Which is similar. So they've hired Dory Miglietti, very prominent land use attorney. I don't know how the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to feel about it. I haven't heard about that. I don't staff those meetings. I don't know what they say, but I have the sense that I don't know what they're gonna go for it, but maybe my special permit they will. So by the time we get comments back from Prague, we'll also know what Holland did and what, I mean, I'll obviously know and I'll pay attention to some of the things that they consider. Maybe there'll be things in there that were helpful enough that, we're missing.
Sure.
So stay
Thanks,
tuned.
Mike. Public participation. Nobody here, anybody online? Public participation?
That's me, so. I'm not-
I guess not. Okay. Staff report?
So 2 quick things I'll mention. One, I am, if you see the Board of Finance agenda, there's a transfer related to the land use department. So part of that is moving end of year savings into the Willington or South Willington Village Lot 6 project. So we really haven't had any increase or additional engineering costs, but we're gonna have to prepare some bid packages. We're gonna need to do some title work related to some easements that we're gonna need. We've been able to get the plans designed so that we will have no takings. There will only be easements. We're not taking land from anybody.
Nice.
There'll be some temporary easements. And then some permanent easements, which are only a couple of feet, just for construction of the sidewalk. So there's gonna be some title work that we're gonna need to do, so we're transfers related to that. And then we're basically taking the remainder of the savings from all the various accounts between building, engineering, planning and zoning, wetlands, and ZBA. Taking it all together and it's being transferred into the PZC document preservation, which is the scanning project. So we're in the process now of upgrading Laserfeast, which we talked about, so there'll be a more user-friendly online portal. So we had 96 boxes of all of our old files scanned. So we have a bunch left, so we're gonna take that savings we've got Rico agreed to honor the rate that they quoted us in 2021. And we're gonna get significant portion of the rest of it scanned with no real cost. It's all money that was there. So those transfers are related to that. The only other thing that I really just wanted to kind of start the commission thinking about relates to enforcement. I know that it's like 24 and I don't want to talk too much about it, but there are properties in town and a couple of them exist, let's say at the intersection of 74 and 32. And we have had significant enforcement issues there. Really a lackadaisical response from the owner. I have two tools in the enforcement toolbox, a notice of violation and a cease and desist. After I send a cease and desist, it has to go to the town attorney. We did this the last time and Mr. Milner owned the property. We went to court, we got an order, we went through foreclosure, and we basically woke up the next day with absolutely no rights to do anything on the property. So what we're left with is really not a lot of options. I've done my best to be as forceful and angry as I can. We've issued notices and it's sort of a, oh, I'm doing this and oh, I'm doing that, with a whole lot of nothing, really. And I sort of have this perspective of not being interested in starting wars that we're not gonna win. And for me to go through the process of documenting, to send a cease and desist, which I really can't do very much about. And then to say, okay, we're gonna send it to Howard and Sage and have them spin up a whole court case, which will take 18 to 24 to 30 months. All while we're having to deal with everything else that comes with the court process. Feels a little futile. So an option that many towns exercise, which we do not, is a citation fine ordinance. $150 a day, $75 a day, $50, whatever it is. It is an ordinance that the town would adopt related to violations of the zoning regulations. Or wetland regulations. And it's essentially an interim step, and so after the first point of non-compliance. You could issue a fine of a certain amount, or you could issue a recurring fine. And basically say, you have to do the following things, we're issuing this fine, you have the right to contest this in front of a citation hearing officer, which is someone that would be here. But it does provide for a little bit of flexibility in that those fines can continue to accrue. And if we need to, we have up to 12 months to basically affirm those fines by requesting a judgment from the court. And so we could let them accrue $100 a day, we could wait 10 months. And we can say, are you sure you don't want to come into compliance? Because we could basically rescind this at that point. I guess I have a plug in my hair. Or we could go to court and we could get a judgment. For $10,000, whatever it is. And to be clear, this is not a way to make money for the town. This is not a way to do anything other than to create leverage. If someone has a violation on their property that involves removing 15 junk vehicles, and it's gonna cost them $500 a vehicle. What I'm asking them to do is, that's a $7,000 cost. There's no reason to do that unless the alternative is equally as expensive. I'm not sure what other options, well, I know there's no other options, we can certainly continue to do what we've done, but. I think as you've seen, we have all these properties out there and they linger, and one of the reasons they linger is because we really have no. We have no flexibility or ability to do anything other than say, you're in violation. And then you have to cease and desist.
Does the town need a blight ordinance?
No, it would be a citation ordinance.
Okay.
Related to violations of the zoning regulations and if the town chose the wetland regulations.
Okay.
And the structure would be prepared by us. So there's really no involvement from anybody outside the town, other than we would need the town to appoint someone to be the citation hearing officer. Basically say, we agree, staff issued this fine correctly and we're gonna uphold that. Or no, we get it, you've appealed the citation and you've come to us and demonstrated you're in compliance, so we're gonna rescind the issuance of that, citation. Well, there's a lot involved, I'm not trying to make you decide tonight, but I've sort of gotten a little bit frustrated with the fact that I drive by these things and I have nothing. And-
Well, and there's certainly conversation around town, well, you know, what the heck's going on? What's going on here, what's going on there, why does it have to be that way? So I would say that we need to take a step in that direction, I'm just speaking for myself.
Is that something we have to do, or is that something the town selectmen?
Or select, it becomes an ordinance rather than a zoning.
I mean, you know, just input from us, give you some, you know, how we feel about it. I would say that's what we should do. There should be some way to get those places cleaned up. Because they don't live in town. They don't care what that place looks like. It's the people that drive past it all the time, looking at it saying, "Yeah, can't we do better than that in town?"
Well, yeah, there's no incentive to spend the money, and, so. The other reason that I'm thinking about this is we're obviously currently in court with Harris Gloves. And that basically ate through the legal budget that we had for this fiscal year. We did, Evelyn included as much in-house as we could. We had a discovery portion where they make this request for information and documents. Was, I don't even know how many pages, and the file that we transmitted through Howler and Sage to them ultimately is somewhere in the 2,000 to 4,000 page range. And I think that's because they have no idea that Love's is what it is. They have no idea of the history. They have no idea of the wetland reviews. They have the reports, the daily inspections, and the clerk of the work. I think they thought it's just a traditional site plan approval, and so I think they're, in my mind, and maybe I make myself feel better by thinking they're gonna be shocked when they get 4,000 documents that they have to go through, but we did as much of it in-house as we could so that we wouldn't have to rely on Howard and Sage. And they're 25% of the going rate of land use attorneys now, but I can't justify spending money. Right, we are going to spend on an attorney at a really reasonable rate, what we could be assessing the person that's in violation for. There's 99% chance that we probably will never collect those fees, because the intent is for them to get something that says, holy moly, $10,000, well, yeah, you've ignored this for a year. And have them come in and say, what do I gotta do? And we say, you gotta do these things, and then the first selectman or whatever basically says, talk to the citation hearing officer, we rip it up, you're in compliance, we're all happy. My suggestion would be, if you think this is something that is worth considering, I could put together, I don't know how long it would take me, but I could put together something a little bit more formal in the way of a proposal or presentation that you guys could see, and if you are in agreement, then I could circle back with Peter and sort of get this in the hopper with or selectmen. I think it does to some degree if we get feedback from the home occupation regulations. How are you gonna keep this in compliance? We've got all these people doing all these things. Well, we're adding a tool.
That's what's gonna be my question.
Yeah, so I mean, this could be,
It's some actual teeth to it, actually.
yeah, and that's the way some towns use it is to not get into the cat and mouse back and forth. We're gonna have these fines. You've demonstrated that you're in compliance, but we're gonna hold this for 12 months. And if at any point you come out of compliance, we're gonna take this down to Vernon and we're gonna file it. And so so it's not, well, we had the truck there for 3 days. I sent you a notice of violation, you removed it. 4 days later, you brought it back and it was there for another. Because with notice of violation and cease and desist, we have to give them at least 30 days for each of them. Statute says we have to. So I say, we've had a truck there for 2 days, you're in violation, and you have 30 days to comply. So he says, okay. If he removes it in 28 days, he's in compliance. And then he removes it for a week and he's back, he gets another 30 days. which, right, is completely against what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, I think you suffered through the consequences of trying it one way.
Right.
And you came up empty. So I think the next step is to try another way, as you're proposing, and see how that works.
It's just accountability for everything we're trying to approve and move forward in a respectful way. Accountability to, I should say.
The last thing that I'll say, because it gets back to your question, and yes, we don't have a blight ordinance in town, and that's not at all related to this. It has nothing to do with this, but this idea of accountability in commercial businesses and costs and leverage. There was a change with the last legislative session for things like blight ordinances, property maintenance, whatever you want to call it, that allows for a sliding scale of fees to be leveraged against commercial properties. Because $100 a day is a big deal for a residential property. It is not a big deal for FedEx. And so they're running into these issues of the same thing. It's like, okay, fine, you're gonna charge me $50 a day because I haven't done the following thing. Great, I don't care. It'll cost me 10 times that just to call my attorney and have to respond to your notice, so we'll just ignore you. And so the state has said for those types of ordinances, you can have a sliding scale, so properties that are larger, that are commercial, you can ramp up those fees so that they start paying attention and that accountability exists from the start. So I can prepare something a little bit more formal that explains what it is, what it isn't, and sort of outlines the process so that how it would work, and so people paying attention, you know, don't think, if you're in violation, they're gonna send you a fine. That's not what it is. Yeah, and maybe, you know, from there you can decide how you feel.
Why don't you do that?
Okay? I will.
Any other comments from Mike? If not, it's 9:34, meeting adjourned.